So it's great to be here this morning. My background is I've spent 30 years working in Northern California, water, predominantly dams and hydropower. Started my career doing design, going out in construction, taking those lessons learned back into the design. Spent a time as a construction foreman where my responsibilities were to make sure everybody went home safely at the end of the day. We delivered a quality product on time and on budget. And then spent the rest of my time working on projects, essentially getting them either unstuck or getting them done. And along the way, I learned that basically projects are pretty simple. You have a clear vision, you build trust, and then you manage risks. The hard part is really the institutional framework, the rules, the statutes that we have to comply with environmentally to get a project done and still do that in a cost-effective manner. So I've been selected to manage the Sites Project Authority. So the authority right now consists of members all within the Sacramento Valley, both large and small, and they will be the applicants for the project. So this is how we're organized. Essentially, it really reflects an organization to meet Prop 1 requirements. Prop 1 requires the applicant to be local. That's why we have Sac Valley participation 100%. It includes the counties for land use. It includes the water agencies. It will eventually, will include DWR as ex officio. But we also have some members that are interested just in the financing of the reservoir, the water that will be produced. And we currently have 4 members signed up, and we are looking for participation within the rest of the Sac Valley, the American River, and south of Delta, because this project really does provide benefits statewide. So this is how we're basically organized so that the authority will be the applicant for Prop 1. Just real clear. We're working with the state on becoming the CEQA lead agency, so we increase basically that local control of the project, which I think is going to be very essential for getting the project off the ground more quickly. Local control means nimbler decision making, easier to get things going, get this project done. We also have the Project Agreement Committee. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but that is the body that will be responsible for what does the reservoir look like? How big? What kind of pumps do we put in? All the technical details. How do we finance it? So we basically keep everything in line with just a simple major changes. The 2 groups need to stay in line. One can't go off the reservation. Maybe not a politically correct term. Sorry. But basically, both groups have to be in alignment with how the project goes forward. So there's a check and balance system to make sure that this project gets done and gets done correctly. The right questions are being asked to make sure the project goes forward. Unfortunately, this is what it will look like when full build out. So we have a lot of growth that we're going to be doing in the next couple of years, especially when we get the Prop 1 funds. So why Sites? Well, last year, you'll see that Sites Reservoir basically produced over 600,000, or could have put 600 into storage, and almost double that in terms of into what we call indirect benefits, carry over into Shasta, Storage, Oroville, Folsom. So there's really a compounding effect of sites that most people don't realize, that with that water coming in and we integrate operations with the 2 projects, we can literally double the amount of water that's available for both water supply and environmental benefits. That's really the strength of the project. It has such a flexible operation that it can be used any combination. That's also probably one of the downfalls, is it's so flexible, but it comes at a cost, and I'll get into that shortly. So this year, just alone, through February, we could have put 448,000 acre-feet into storage for use this year. And I think that number with these upcoming storms will grow significantly. So Sites really is another tool for water management, not only in the Sac Valley, but for the state. So basically, just to show, this produces additional water in every month for the Shasta, basically the Sacramento Valley. We have every water year type, whether it's critical or wet, that there's a net increase in benefits of the project. And on water year types, every year, major benefits. These are all the measurable that are required under Prop 1 to demonstrate. So basically, what is sites? It basically relies on water that is coming downstream of Shasta. So we don't take water from Shasta, we're collecting from the tribs. We're collecting about 10% of the flows that are coming off, so the existing conveyance facilities kind of limit how much water can be taken, so it's not a big gulp concept. It's basically taking off from the existing hydrograph to get the reservoir filled. Okay, I got to move on. Water quality in Delta. This project can provide a lot of water to help freshen up the Delta, which not only helps with the state board's concerns, but also allow water to move south. And we do have the ability to do renewable energy. That is we're a water project that could produce renewable energy to help the governor achieve its goals. There are a few institutional limitations, like hydropower is limited to 50 megawatts. We can produce 100 that we need to work through. But there really is a potential for this to do more than just water. Okay, so Sites Reservoir is outside of Maxwell, just real simple. We have a 1.8 million acre foot reservoir we may downsize it to 1.3, but right now we're going at 1.8. That'll produce about a 500,000 acre foot sustainable yield. We have a third intake that we're proposing off what's called Delvin off the Sacramento River, that combined with the Tehama-Colusa Canal and Glen-Colusa canals, we can divert about 11,000 acre feet a day into the reservoir to get these yields up. And then the water would flow from the reservoir back into the Sacramento River for release, and through exchanges. That's how you get the numbers like you saw for 2015. Go ahead. So schematically, this is really how the water works, pumping it from the two canals into a regulating reservoir up to sites. You'll notice we're talking about operating ranges about 200 feet in Sites Reservoir. So it's going to be the workhorse that makes up for the lack of flexibility or the lost flexibility that Shasta and Oroville had. This won't be the type of lake where you have full most of the year, nice scenic water level with tree line. It's going to be fluctuating. So that's one of the benefits of sites, is being off stream. We can take it down low and we can bring it up. We have less risk of spill in the wintertime to carry water over. That's really some of the strengths of the project. But here again, we can also generate. Not only can we do as the water's going back out in the summertime, which matches peak demand on the grid, we can also do a cycling that can tie in with renewable energy for solar and wind as that comes forward. So there's even another extended benefit of renewable energy of this project. But it's really a couple of dams, actually 2 really large dams and 9 small saddle dams. 22 million cubic yards of earth will have to be moved. But this is within the scope of what's been done within California. You'll see that Turlock and Modesto have done a dam about the same size. Merced with Exchequer. So local control, big projects, clear within reach. So then, what do these facilities start to look like? If you're familiar with Red Bluff, we're envisioning the pumping plants looking very similar to Red Bluff, a very low scale, not the kind of structures you think of when you look at Banks or Jones in the Central Valley or State Water Project pumping facilities, very low profile, a little more compatible with the environment in terms of visually. The intake would look very similar to Red Bluff. You know, it's just trying to keep it as low profile, minimal as possible. And then one of the drawbacks is we do need to tie to the grid. Go ahead again. So we will have power lines. The good news is we're close to the existing lines to tie in for the major pumping. That third intake is one we're still working on how best to get power to that. But the good news is right now there are existing right-of-ways within the utilities. So we're not talking about a completely new corridor. We're talking about looking at using existing right-of-way. So basically the takeaway of this is the modelers showing me that the reservoir fills on a 3 to 5 year frequency. So we need about 40 to 60 days a year of runtime to fill the reservoir. And it produces about 500,000 acre-feet a year of sustainable yield. That takes into account the current biological opinions. It takes into account future demand for water supply. And then again, we also have the indirect benefits. The blue line is the increase in Shasta and Oroville that occurs because we're using water out of sites, exchanging it. Instead of making those releases, you can keep that carryover. And that's some of the benefits that Prop 1 is recognizing. The other is the state has done a study that shows that this project is resilient to climate change. So at least at the Natural Resources Agency's level, sites does show resilience to climate change, which is another one. How, making sure this project performs in the future, 30, 50, 100 years out. But again, it comes with a price. We're talking $3 to $4 billion price tag for this project. It comes out to about $600 an acre foot repayment. Pretty expensive. So you really have to, the people that are interested in the project have to look at it in the context of what is it doing within their existing portfolio, how does it fit in, does it help diversify supplies, are they looking for wet water, are they looking for dry year water, that whole combination. And then how much do we want to make available for the public benefits? So schedule-wise, we're in phase 1, planning, getting our application to the Water Commission. Then we got to cycle through the next phases, which is getting our environmental documents completed, getting our design, getting our construction, and then turning it over to operations. So we're just at the beginning. But this is also the most risky. The risk is high, it's uncertain. With Prop 1, one of the fundamental shifts was from state and federal control to regional. All that risk has also been transferred to us. So right now I look at this as essentially venture capital. We're trying to move a project off the ground. As we're managing those risks, the risks will come down. As we get Prop 1, the value comes down. So I really look at it as really buying stock. It's a penny stock today, kind of junk stock. We get Prop 1, maybe worth $1. We get our record of decision in those critical water quality, Clean Water Act permits, it's worth dollars. Then we can get in and finance for the final design and construction where the value then can be realized of the project. So what are we doing to improve the rate of return on investment, which the state is looking at benefit and cost. That's the method they're going to use under Prop 1, and I'll get in Prop 1 in a minute. It's basically compressing the schedule. One of the strategies we're looking at is using alternative delivery methods of construction where you integrate the design and construction so you can reduce that cycle time. Cost is money. If we can shave it 6 months or a year off the schedule, that's less finance cost. The other is looking at how to price the water within Prop 1. This is really important, is that getting the state and the Fish and Wildlife and the state board who have to contract with us for the water to see that it's the value of the water, not an avoided cost. In the past, a lot of projects, and with your mitigation, it comes into what is the avoided cost of the water. So it's that increment. We're working on a strategy where it's justified as the true value. So this dedicated supply of water, it's the control of the water that the agencies would have to make that water available for the public benefits. That's where the value lies. So getting that water priced at the value is very important to this project. Also then maximizing the yield. Integrating with a state project and the federal projects, those operators, we can maximize the yield. If we don't, the yield will go down. So there's going to be, working with those operators to make sure that that flexibility of when you use sites to hold at Shasta or hold at Folsom is offset and recognized and valued in the pricing of this project. And then we have basically low interest loans that they have on the transportation side where you can get low interest loans to do a road or an expressway. There's work in Congress going on to make that kind of equivalent for the water industry. So seeing that would reduce the interest cost, clear benefit not only for us but also for the public. Essentially it helps maximize the return on investment, again, for both water users and the state in terms of the public benefits. So Prop 1 real quickly is $7.5 billion, 2.7 is only for Chapter 8. That's the surface storage. Basically, there's eligible projects. Because we're a CalFed project, we're eligible. We have the 5 public benefits, so they're a very limited set of benefits, but it's the water quality, the ecosystem, flood, recreation, and emergency response that is what the state will fund. Go ahead. So the key performance measure, at the end of the day, there's a lot that the commission wants us to achieve, but really the one at the bottom is that long-term ecological health of the delta. That is really going to be, in my opinion, the litmus test for what projects can be funded or not. As you can see, with a 500,000 acre feet, if the Prop 1 can apply 50% of the cost of the project, we could devote a lot of water to making that happen, which then benefits the environment. It also benefits the water industry. So this myriad of things we have to do to get our application and be successful for this project. The biggest one is going to be that environmental documentation. At the end of the day, that really says we have a legitimate project. This is the timeline that the commission's on. The voters approved it in November. First set of regulations just came out for public review. How many of you knew that there was a public review going on for the Water Commission as it relates to these storage projects? It closes next week. This is one where we have been participating aggressively along with some of the other project applicants to try and make sure that the regulations can be implemented, produce in a cost-effective manner and produce meaningful results, get that money out the door quicker. But the commission is not going to be able to make a decision until the end of 2018. So one of our suggestions to the commission is can we improve that schedule? Because the longer we have to wait, again, the more we are spending in finance to cover the cost of the project. So this is, I think, really how, when you boil down all the requirements for Prop 1, it really comes down to is the return on investment and how well does the project help with the ecology of the delta, meaningful or measurable improvements. And the big elephant in the room is the climate change. Right now, the project pencils out really well, but when you start looking at the commission's requirements for climate change, they become overly conservative or very pessimistic, brings down the return on investment for every project. And then where does the commission decide the balance point is between return on investment and those benefits? We can produce a lot with sites, but it's going to be expensive. There may be other projects that could produce a little for a little lower return on investment. The commission's going to have to struggle with how do you put those two together? What's the right combination that totals up to the $2.7 billion? So Prop 1, again, it's some of our concerns. It's a lengthy process. We think it can be shortened. The climate change, when you look at 2 to 4 feet of sea level rise at the delta, it brings questions. What does the delta look like over that time frame? Can even the state-of-the-art models produce results that are meaningful in showing that a project still works? Those are some of the concerns we have. Go ahead. The other is the commission has said it could be 5 years before we could even get funding. Again, that 5 years, if we move the project forward, we're funding that state's share of the cost. That has to roll into the project. That reduces the return on investment for the project for both water supply and public benefit. So we're trying to work with the commission. How do we shorten that up? Get the funds available so that everything's working. We're not having finance costs driving the project. And then the evaluation criteria is, again, pretty rigorous, which you expect. But again, it's really, we're trying to focus on maximizing return on investment for both our water users and the public benefits. So, go ahead. So basically, this is simple bar chart of, we're able to produce a couple $100 million in public benefits as we look at it today. Now, the Water Commission is going to be putting together their scoring system, their weighting system. They're trying to monetize benefits, and I don't know how they're going to come up with what is the value of an acre foot of cold water pool in Shasta. But that's one of the things they're tasked to do, and then they're going to have to decide, Is it the same value at Shasta as it is for Oroville, as it is for Folsom? That's some of the complexity that the commission has. So they don't have an easy process, and that's one reason why we're trying to work with them, again, to create this partnership, because we really want these projects to go forward, but it has to be meaningful, and we have to be able to do this in a time and cost-effective manner. So we're looking right now at basically, it's just very simple. Prop 1 gives 50% of the money for public benefits. Water users provide the other 50%. But cost isn't yield. So when you convert some of the public benefits like flood and recreation, those aren't water-based. So we have one of our challenges is figuring out what's that balance point. How much do we want to ask for out of Prop 1, and what does that translate into yield? My feeling is it's less than 50%. But again, it also comes into is it priced on the avoided cost of the water or the value of that water being put to public benefit? So that's one of the big challenges we have. Again, we're talking 500,000 acre-foot per year, long-term average. Go ahead. Again, the indirect and the direct benefits. So when we get into, go ahead. So when we're looking at how we're moving forward with the authority, we're assuming right now, just very simple, cost and yield are the same. So we're working with investors to come up with 250,000 acre-feet. We've decided that we also want a fallback plan. Can we do this project without Prop 1? Which means, do we have enough interest in the full project? So we've created Class 2 and Class 3, which more risky water because it's really dependent on if we're not successful with Prop 1. But the idea is to be able to finish our planning process and go into our application with 100% and then dial back what is the appropriate amount of public benefit for Prop 1. Do we ask for the full 50%? Do we ask for 35%? What that number is. That's one of the challenges that the board has coming up in the next year. Okay, so this is the wrap-up slide. Essentially, what I really need for any of you is, if you're interested in helping move sites forward, is the commission's process finishes on March 14th. That's the public comment period closes. And getting any letters into the commission so they hear from more than the project applicants. They hear from outside of the water industry. We're reaching out to the chambers and we're reaching out to the counties with some of the concerns we've identified in Prop 1 to get that support. If you're interested, come see me and I can explain some of the concerns in detail. We'd love to have your letters of to the commission to help inform them as they move into the next step. And we are moving forward with setting up a formal project office. So we're almost done with the renovations. We will have an office in Maxwell about mid-year. And so we are getting momentum, and we are getting ready on all the studies we need for our application, which are quite rigorous. The authority members today are committing to spend $7.2 million just to put an application together. So that's a lot of money with the studies, but that's what we feel is needed in order to submit an application that meets all the requirements in terms of technically feasible and a publicly available environmental document. So we're spreading those costs right now over those existing members, and we will be bringing in new members as the project goes forward and spreading those costs. But I really want to thank you for the opportunity to come talk about sites, and if you have questions, please see me afterwards. I'd love to answer them, and again, thank you very much.